Before you head out on your next trip, or if you just bought an RV, whether new or used, motorized or towable, there's something that you need to check before hitting the road. It's not something that you want to learn the hard way, so let's dive into it. Many RVs, especially used ones, come with tires that are, well, let's just say they're not the highest quality or treated the best. They might be old, cheap, or even dry rotted, and a blowout can ruin your trip real fast. Now, most RVers will age out their tires before they wear them out. Some newer rigs are coming with better quality tires, but don't assume yours are good to go. Always check the DOT date codes and visually inspect all your tires before pulling out. You can find that DOT date code stamped into the tire sidewall, and it'll tell you the week and the year that the tire was manufactured. So 3523, this tire was manufactured in the 35th week of the year 2023. And if you can't find that exact sequence, try looking on the other side of the tire. It's usually only stamped on one side or the other, and sometimes that side is on the inside of the RV. It's recommended that you replace towable tires every 3 to 5 years, even if you haven't met the mileage rating. Remember, tires are designed to be used. They'll last longer when they're not sitting in one place. So the used RV listing for the 5-year-old RV that has less than 100 miles on the tires isn't actually a benefit. It's a liability, and I personally would replace those tires as soon as possible. Now, the fact that most RVs will age out their tires instead of wearing them out is just one of the things that I'd wish I'd known before buying my first travel trailer. Hey there, and welcome to RV Gear and Far. I'm Joshua, and today I want to jump into several things that I wish I understood about RVs before I bought my first travel trailer. Maybe you can relate to some of them, and hopefully I can highlight several items to consider that will save you time, frustration, and money with your first or next rig. Now, first off, let's dispel the myth that RVing is a cheap way to travel. A lot of people think that RVing is a way to save money compared to hotels and flights. And while that can be true in some scenarios, the real value is in the lifestyle. Waking up in places that hotels don't exist, bringing your pets, sleeping in your own bed, cooking your own food. That's the true draw to RVing. Plus, when you factor in maintenance, fuel, campsite fees, membership, all the gear you need, the gadgets, you get the idea here. You really are paying for the flexibility and the freedom more than inexpensive travel. When you're buying an RV, specifically a used one, know this. If a used RV hasn't had any repairs done, I'd be super skeptical. Every used RV has needed repairs at some point. Heck, most new RVs need repair between the manufacturer and the point where the customer takes it home from the dealer. What matters more is the transparency and how it was repaired. So a seller or a dealer coming in with a list of things that have been repaired is actually better than saying there's been no repairs done on this RV. Now, new RVs come with warranties, but that can also mean dealing with long wait times at service centers while they process paperwork or warranty information with the manufacturer. And wait times can often be weeks or even months at a time. This is where having an RE tech you trust or being handy yourself makes a huge difference. We won't dive into the specifics on this video, but I want you to be aware of virtual and mobile RV technician services. Products like RV Fix and RV Help can get you connected to qualified professionals for RV maintenance and repair while you're out on the road. And speaking of mobile RV technicians, when I bought our rig, I didn't even know that RV inspections were a thing. But I definitely see the immense value a disinterested third-party inspection can bring to the purchase of an RV, both a used one and a new one. That way, you can make your purchasing decision based on critical details to that rig specifically, and get any issues addressed before you even take the rig home. We get inspections for our homes, why wouldn't we get inspections for RVs? If you're looking for an RV inspector, RVhelp.com is a great place to start. I'll be sure to provide any appropriate information, affiliate codes, discount links, all that in the video description. Oh, and during the buying process, here's an obvious tip that a lot of folks forget about until after they've purchased. Step inside the shower and close the curtain or the door. Do you fit comfortably? Something as simple as enough room to clean yourself without kinking your neck or constantly fighting with a shower curtain around your shoulders can really impact your RV travels. Sticking with sizing here for a minute, make sure to pay attention to RV mattress sizes. If there was an award for most variety in sizes, RV mattresses would win by a landslide. RV Queen is a mattress size that is your standard 60 inches wide, but it's only 75 inches long. There's Olympic Queen, RV Queen, Standard Queen, Full. Often RV bunks are not sized to a specific mattress size configuration either, but rather created from whatever's left over once everything else is laid out. So you get widths like 27 inches wide, up to 54 inches wide for bunks. The variety is intense, and since you'll be spending 8 to 10 hours resting in these spaces, Make sure you get a layout that works for you and your family. Some floor plans list dimensions on the picture, while others do not. Definitely information that you'll want to gather during your research phase, either from the manufacturer or your dealer. A little tip here. I've noticed that while convertible spaces, Dinettes and Jackknife couches, seem like a good idea on paper and in the marketing materials, they very rarely get converted. So plan on having a dedicated sleeping space for each person that will regularly be traveling in your rig. The notable exceptions here are Murphy beds and Happy Jack systems where the beds go up or fold up. But the dinettes and couches that convert, don't include them in your sleeping space count if they'll be used on a regular basis. One, they're super uncomfortable, and two, they'll be a hassle to convert frequently every day. Now you can swap out mattresses and possibly even mattress sizes. We extended the platform of our short RV queen an extra 5 inches to be able to put a standard size queen mattress in the space. And don't rule out buying a foam mattress that's a bit too large, trimming it down to size. Obviously you avoid any warranty, but for the odd bunk shapes or widths, it can be a much more cost-effective solution than a purpose-built RV mattress. A word of warning, especially with bunk mattresses. Take into consideration any emergency exits. You don't want the mattress so deep that it comes over the latches and impedes egress in an emergency situation. Now hold on with mattresses for just one more tip, as this one is super important. If your mattress lays over an area that may have differing temperatures, a non-heated pass-through for example, or an outdoor kitchen, make sure to lift the mattress up to allow airflow underneath. It is super important, and here's why. Especially in those shoulder seasons when the exterior temps will be dropping in the evening, your body heat as you sleep will warm up the mattress. The temperature difference between your body and the cooler pass-through will cause condensation to form below the mattress. And with no ventilation, you'll have the perfect condition for mold growth. If you have pet beds that are on slide outs, raise those up as well because the same concept applies there too. We don't use box springs under mattresses in RVs, but even most mattress-only bed frames in our sticks and bricks use slats instead of solid wood to allow the mattress to breathe. There's several solutions out there to achieve this ventilation below your mattress. I'll put a link to a few of them down below, but ultimately just getting that mattress up a bit so that you can allow the moisture to ventilate and breathe. Definitely something I wish I had known before we bought this rig. Now let's pivot a bit to talk about the actual RV and the vehicle. I'm going to go on a limb here and assume that you know your vehicle's tow rating. This is the maximum amount your vehicle is rated to pull and stop when moving down the road. Another less talked about number is payload capacity. This is the total amount of weight that the vehicle is rated to carry. RV and vehicle sales marketing tends to focus on tow ratings. It's a higher number that makes great commercials. But in the RV space, you're more likely to max out your payload capacity before you reach your tow rating. Think of it this way. You may be capable of pulling and stopping 200 pounds of gravel in a garden wagon that sits on 2 axles and has an articulating tongue. You're pulling that much weight, but you're only carrying the weight of the handle. It'll be a very different experience if you put that same weight into a wheelbarrow. Depending on your size, you'll probably still be able to do it. But with your body, you'll be carrying more of that weight through the handles. That's payload. Now, to transfer this analogy back to the RV space, it's typical to see bumper pull trailers have a hitch weight of around 10 to 15% of the loaded weight of the rig. Fifth wheels are closer to 15 to 20% on their pins. You'll need to deduct that hitch or pin weight from the payload capacity of your tow vehicle, in addition to everything else in your tow vehicle outside of a single 150-pound driver and a full tank of fuel. So that extra propane cylinder that you bring for the grill, your spouse, your kids, your pets, all the tools that you have in the back of the truck, all the groceries in the back of the SUV, you have to deduct that weight from your payload capacity. If you don't know your payload capacity, it can typically be found on the driver's side door jamb, on the tire and loading sticker. Towing capacity is a flashy number, but as an RVer, please take the time to calculate your payload. When transitioning from weekenders to full-time travel, our family calculated the extra gear that we'd be bringing and realized that while we were under the tow rating of our old truck, we would have been over the axle and payload capacity. And keep that in mind too. Each of your axles has an individual rating in addition to your payload. You want to make sure you're within the limits of all the metrics of your complete RV setup. So if it's a truck and a towable, or a motorhome and a towed, the whole thing. Now the amount of weight that the tow vehicle can carry is super important, but we also need to pay attention to the RV. They have a cargo carrying capacity as well. And you need to make sure you check it for each specific rig, because if you have the same make, model, and year, the cargo carrying capacities can be different because of different options or accessories that are installed. This number can be found on the yellow sticker, typically located on the foremost entrance door of the RV, or on the data sticker, which for towables is found on the front driver's side exterior wall. Motorhomes have them inside, nearby the driver's seat. Now, we lucked out when we purchased this rig. It has a healthy 2,900 pounds of cargo carrying capacity, which is larger than quite a few fifth wheels that offer a ton more volume in terms of storage space. It's also worth noting if your manufacturer calculated that cargo carrying capacity to include the weight of fresh water in the tank. Often it's not, and at just under 8.5 pounds per gallon, that can eat away at your cargo capacity real quick. So think about all the items that you'll want to store in your rig and write them out. You'll find that the cargo you're adding to the rig is probably significantly heavier than you think. I always tend to look for rigs that have more cargo capacity than we need rather than just enough. Looks can be deceiving too, so make sure that you find exact numbers on specific rigs. This fifth wheel that has all this storage space under the rear kitchen, cargo capacity is 1,500 pounds. Absolute no-go for me. Now, this next point is actually the concept that sparked the entire video idea, and that is understanding 30 versus 50 amp power supplies. What I wish I would have understood before purchasing our first travel trailer was the functional difference between 30 and 50 amp service. If we use a simple equation called Watt's law, we can get a little clarification about why, on a 30 amp service, our 35-foot travel trailer can struggle to utilize all the onboard appliances. If the campground supply is 120 volts and we have 30 amps of service, we can plug those known values into the Watt's law equation, which is watts equals volts multiplied by amps, and we'll be able to see how much power we can actually have available through that receptacle. So at 30 amps and 120 volts, we have 3,600 watts of power available at the 30 amp receptacle. But let's take a look at the 50 amp receptacle. You'd think, based on the name alone, that it would be 20 more amps of power available over the 30 amp. However, 50 amp rigs are wired with 2 legs of 50 amp service. It actually jumps to 12,000 watts total. Now that 12,000 watts is divided between the 2 different legs. Each of these legs is rated to 50 amps. So while you couldn't pull 80 amps of power through one leg, you could pull 40 amps on leg 1 and 40 amps on leg 2 through a 50 amp service, as long as the load was separated. Now back to why this matters from a functional standpoint. Say you don't want 3 air conditioners on your rig, but on a 30 amp service, you often can't utilize all the electrical appliances on your rig at the same time. You have to manually manage your loads. If I turn on this air conditioner, it'll pull somewhere around 15 amps. Then add in the electric heating element on my water heater, that's approximately 12 more amps. Then add in the converter, recharging the coach battery, along with any other 120 volt electrical devices that we're using. And you can see how easily we reach up to that 30 amp limit. Say our family of 4 comes back from a midday hike in the summer. Opening the door will probably kick the air conditioning on. One person goes to wash their hands, which will cycle on the electric water heating element. And in this example, someone's popping some popcorn in the microwave for a snack. Our microwave pulls around 11 amps. 15 plus 12 plus 11, we're already over 30 amps, and we haven't taken into consideration normal loads with other devices or the converter charging the battery. With a 50 amp rig, it becomes much more difficult to max out the system, and there's a lot less manual load balancing, meaning turning off the air conditioner to turn on the microwave, or turning off the electric heating element on the water heater to turn on the electric kettle to make some coffee. Since we travel as a family of 4, I can speak from experience that it's quite annoying to do that manual load managing and forget to turn a device back on, getting halfway through lunch and you forgot to turn the air conditioning back on. First world problem, but the moral of the story is that, at least for our camping preferences and my personal opinion, if the floor plan you're looking for has the option of upgrading to 50 amp service, definitely order it or search out a unit that has it. A quick rule of thumb. If you see 2 or more rooftop air conditioners, chances are that that rig is wired for 50 amp service. But it's also easy to take a quick look at the Shore cord plug. This is the standard 30 amp 3-prong configuration, and this is the 50 amp 4-prong configuration used in RVs. Let's talk a little bit about the difference between a surge protector and an EMS system. I didn't understand the difference when we bought this rig, and it is super important. Now, an EMS includes surge protection, but it does so much more than that. So here's an example using the same appliances that we just talked about. If I turn on my air conditioner, my electric water heating element, and then decide to pop leftovers in the microwave for 30 seconds, With the RV plugged directly into the pole or with a simple surge protector, I can pull more than the 30 amps of power my rig is rated for a short duration of time. Breakers are designed to trip faster as current increases, potentially taking hours for small overloads, seconds for moderate ones, and tripping almost instantly during short circuits. But it's all dependent upon the type, age, and quality of the breakers in the system. With an EMS, or electrical management system, specifically this power watchdog with emergency shutoff, it detects that we're pulling too much power and shuts off the circuit, sends me a notification on my phone if I'm within Bluetooth range, or the new generation models have a Wi-Fi notification if you're connected to the internet. When we switched from a surge protector to the power watchdog, it became immediately apparent that we needed to get better at manually managing our loads on this 30 amp rig. Just because you have the appliances installed in the RV doesn't mean that you can use them all at the same time. I also asked myself, well, if we're pulling more than 30 amps of power, why didn't the main breaker in the rig or on the shore power pole trip? I learned that the breakers are rated at their continuous use level. So a short-term spike won't immediately trip the breaker. It can take time at that load or slightly above it to trip them. But think about all the extra heat on the system when you exceed those power ratings. Once or twice, probably no big deal. Consistently, and you're setting yourself up for potential issues with the electrical system. Now I know when you're buying your RV and doing all the research, all the little things start adding up, and several $100s for an EMS system can seem like a lot, especially because you can just plug the RV straight into the pole. But an EMS system is going to protect your rig significantly better and give you more flexibility in how you manage your power, and it's absolutely cheaper than frying any component in here, any appliance, or rewiring any part of your rig. Not to mention dealing with melted wires or a potential fire hazard that can be avoided. Some EMS systems can also protect you from low voltage as well, and Power Watchdog can, which isn't uncommon when everyone in the park is running their ACs during the summer. Low voltage makes the appliances work harder and will absolutely fry electrical components in your RV over time. Utilizing an EMS that will protect your rig from low voltage, automatically shutting it off when it's outside parameters, is absolutely worth every dollar spent. Another misconception I had surrounding power was how long I could run my 12-volt items off of my coach battery. The RV furnace, control board, and the blower fan run off of 12 volts. Powering a gas absorption fridge, cooling with the propane still utilizes 12-volt power for the control panel. Surely we could go one night with heat and power in the RV refrigerator as we boondock in a parking lot on a travel day, right? Unfortunately, that's not the case, especially with flooded lead acid batteries. The capacity just isn't there, especially when you take into consideration that flooded lead acid batteries should not be drawn lower than 50% depth of discharge before you start damaging the cells inside. So 100 amp hour flooded lead acid battery really only gives you 50 amp hours of capacity. So if we're conservative, we may get 8 to 10 hours of runtime on those two devices off of 50 amp hours of usable battery. But during that time, did we utilize the 12-volt water pump, the 12-volt electric motors for the stabilizers, any 12-volt lights inside? All to say, the industry change toward lithium batteries is a good one, but still don't expect a lightsaber for boondocking off of a single 100 amp hour battery. Record some of the numbers on your rig, do the math, and figure out what your normal consumption looks like so that you know what kind of durations you can expect from your battery source and current setup. A final note on batteries, utilize those battery cutoff switches. If you don't have one, you can install one. They definitely save your bacon when you head to the storage unit to pick up the rig for a long weekend, only to find out that the status lights from the radio inside drained the coach battery, and now your tongue jack won't retract to hitch it up to your truck. Obviously, there are solutions to that. Plugging it into the truck could be one of them, but it's frustrating nonetheless, so use those battery cutoff switches. I also wish I had paid more attention to the number of vents that were on our rig. We only have one rooftop vent in the bathroom, and it would have been really nice to have a vent in each room. We've got the bunk room with the door, the master bedroom with the door, and the main living space. 3 vents would have been ideal, one for each of those spaces. I upgraded this stock vent van to the Max Air Deluxe. It's both intake and exhaust functions and was absolutely worth it. If we had another vent or two, we could move some serious air through the RV, even with the windows closed on a rainy day. Absolute game changer of an upgrade, but the number of vents is something I'm definitely look for on our next RV. Prior to doing some of my own testing on this rig, I would have assumed that these electric stabilizers, since they're an upgrade option, would have superior performance to the standard scissor jack stabilizers. However, that has not been my experience. These scissor jacks outperform the electric stabilizers in my testing, and while not something that I would remove if I had them or replace electric versions on a used rig that I was buying, I definitely wouldn't spend the money on the upgrade if I were ordering a new unit. There is a bit more work involved with the manual scissor jack stabilizers. You have to use a hand crank or a drill, never an impact driver. You're gonna mess something up with the screw to actuate them up and down. But they're stupid simple and really easy to replace if necessary. These guys are a bit more complicated, and since these stabilize better, no brainer for me. Now, if you really want a super stable towable RV, adding angled stabilizers against the I-beam of the trailer are beyond impressive. I've been using the DIY 2x4 version for a few years and have a full build tutorial that I'll link to in the description, along with a comparison video between the DIY and several commercial options that are now available. Let's talk a little bit about floor plans and layouts. When we were in our research phase, we heard a lot of folks reference roadside access. Can you utilize the bathroom, the sink, the fridge, and the beds while the slides are in? Now, in an ideal setup, yes, having all those items accessible with the slides in during road mode would be fantastic. However, my practical experience has indicated that it's not as big of a deal as folks on the internet might make it out to be. Taking the time and the space to put out our slide to load up groceries on the way to the campsite, or utilize the bathroom at a rest stop, or sleep while lot docking have never been a big issue for us. You will need to be mindful of which way you park based off the slide that you need to open. And as a common courtesy, only open what you need to for the task at hand. But boiled down, if I could choose to have everything accessible with the slides in, I would. But that accessibility is going to be very low on my priorities list. But hey, your mileage may vary. This is my experience and my preference. If you travel with furry friends, make sure to take their needs into consideration when planning to buy your RV as well. Where they'll sleep, do you have space to set out their food and water dishes? If you travel with a cat, do they utilize the litter box, and where will you put said litter box? Some manufacturers are getting better about including some of these considerations and spaces into their designs, but everyone has different needs and requirements. Pets, no pets, different size pets, different types of pets. With limited floor space in our rig, we elected to remove the Jackknife sofa and build a buffet table with some storage that would give Moxie a dedicated space in the RV. Again, a family traveling full-time in their RV versus going out for 3 long weekends a summer dramatically changes the requirements you and your pets will need. My point is, consider these requirements when choosing your layout. It can make a huge difference in the functionality and the flow of your space and therefore your travels. So this trailer wasn't our first RV. We've had a few pop-up campers before we purchased it. So I already had this figured out, but realized that becoming an RV owner, you're also signing up to become an RV maintainer, or at least a maintenance scheduler. There's quite a bit of regular maintenance that is required to properly maintain an RV. And it's not a question of if something will break, but when it will break. YouTube is a great resource for teaching yourself how to maintain and fix your RV. Most manufacturers post videos about their components and systems as well. Just remember, anyone can post anything online. Do your due diligence and source information from multiple reliable sources. Does it sound like I'm suggesting that you question my videos? Absolutely. Absolutely. I do a ton of research before posting, but I'd rather you watch 2 or 3 more videos from the manufacturer or other reliable creators and spend some time thinking critically before making any decisions on how to tackle a DIY project for your rig, a gear purchase, or attempting to do a repair on your own personal RV. Now, as an RV owner, you can also get additional training for your RV. Lippert has their RV Owners School. You can take in-person or online trainings through the National RV Training Academy or through the RV Technical Institute. And if you find yourself in a situation beyond your capabilities or your comfort level, you can always hire a mobile or virtual technician too. RV Help, RV Fix, and RVTI's locators are great resources that offer everything from virtual diagnosis, mobile dispatch or assistance from a nearby dealer service center or scheduling with that service center. In support of becoming an RV maintainer, the minute you become an RV owner, I'd also suggest that you create a well-rounded toolkit to keep with you while you're adventuring. If you want to check out what I keep in mind, I'll leave a link to that video in the description below. But you need to be prepared for things to break, because they will break, and having simple tools and some extra supplies will really keep the adventure rolling instead of coming to a standstill. What do you wish you had known before buying your first RV? I'm Joshua. Thanks for joining me here at RV Gear and Far. Happy trails. We'll see you down the road.